In this episode, we have another special guest, Kara Bunde-Dunn. Kara is a spiritual medium who breaks down connecting with intuition in a way that's easy to understand and apply to your business and your life. Together, we explore the benefits of connecting with your intuition, how to determine the difference between the voices of fear and your voice of internal wisdom, and the four most common listening languages to tune into your own intuition, your own inner wisdom. When you connect with your intuition or inner wisdom, you have a gentle guide that supports you in taking aligned action in your business and in life. You will have more clarity, confidence, and even self compassion and self love as you tune into your intuition. By the end of this episode, you will know how to spot intuitive messages and connect more deeply with your highest self. If you stay until the end of the episode, you'll hear more about how you can work with Kara, including her free ebook guide that's coming out to help you grow from spiritually curious to spiritually connected. And if you loved hearing stories from Kara about what it's like to be a medium, then tune into her podcast, the Energetics Podcast, where you will hear stories from her fellow mediums about their very interesting life experiences. Be sure to listen. Welcome to the Self-Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD-ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we have another really special guest with us, Kara Bunde-Dunn. And she's going to help us with our intuition in such a beautiful way. I can hardly wait for this conversation. So, welcome, Kara.
Oh my gosh, Jen, thank you so much. A fellow Minnesotan. I live in Nebraska now, but I love talking to anybody that's from my home turf, if you will.
Once a Minnesotan, always a Minnesotan.
Always. Even I lived in Nebraska for 25 years and I literally still say, oh, I live in Nebraska, but I'm from Minnesota.
Seems appropriate.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So for all you listeners that aren't from Minnesota, it's a special place of tundra and lakes, and you go in one climate and out of the other. And it really is a lovely place.
That was well said. With really great people.
Yeah, with wonderful people.
Yeah.
Minnesota nice. It's a real thing. So we hope that our niceness also has wisdom in it for you all.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here, Jen. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm really looking forward to talking to your audience in particular about just helping them understand the power of intuition. And I can't wait to get into all of it with you.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself or your background, or just so people have an idea of what you do?
100%. So I like to call myself a recovering corporate executive. So I spent, 20 some years in the business world. My last job in the business world was the chief sales officer of an ed tech company. And while I was doing that, I was also a practicing spiritual medium. And so I happened to live a bit of a dual life of on the nights and weekends, I would do reading for people from all over the world. And then in my day job, I was working a corporate sales executive role. And so it was quite wild learning how to access my intuitive abilities. And as a medium in particular, I call myself a spiritual medium. Some people say psychic mediums. It just feels more aligned for me to say spiritual. So that's what I do. But learning those abilities awakened to me around the age of 40. And so it wasn't something I had my whole life.
Wow.
So I had to learn how to connect the world I was living with these new abilities that awakened within me and what to do with it all. So it's been quite a journey, but it's been really fun too. And so now I'm fully into the intuitive work and I help people learn how to access their intuition, how to listen to the whisper before it's a brick over the head, and just learn, like how this can be your superpower to trust that inner voice and that little whisper that helps guide us on our path in life.
That's so wonderful. Oh, I'm so excited to dig in. I just want to tell everyone, if you wait till the end of the episode, Kara's going to share this really cool new guide she came out with, and it's free. So
Yeah,
stay tuned.
we'll drop it at the end. Stay till the end.
We'll drop it at the end. Yeah. So okay. People that tend to follow me tend to be somewhat open-minded, and probably more spiritual than religious types, and not all for sure. But but and some may have dabbled with intuition and some may not. So what do you say to people around connecting with their intuition? Why would they want to?
Yeah, it's a great question, and people call it all sorts of different things. And honestly, it's about what resonates with your soul, right? So if you do have listeners on that are really religious, they may call it the Holy Spirit. I feel like the
Oh,
Holy Spirit gives me a little whisper, like God, like a little God wink telling me where to go or what to do. And I pray and then I get these little nudges and I listen to it. For people that aren't in that space, you're spiritually open, you're probably going to call it your intuition or your higher self. And the way I think about higher self is it's a part of you that your soul remembers.
mm,
And it's that tiny little bit of God's spark within you. And it's your higher self. And it's that inner wisdom that guides you. And
mm.
that's how I like to think about it is like it's the most beautiful, perfect part of myself guiding me and helping me along the way. So why wouldn't you want to listen to this little voice that has nothing but pure intentions to help you on your path? And many
Yeah.
people like my husband who are like, we'll call him agnostic at best. He is like a pragmatic meditator, like very present moment kind of guy. For anyone that knows Sam Harris, he's a very like astute Sam Harris meditator. And so his vibe is more like, it's my gut instinct. I just have really good gut instincts. And I think that's funny. Your gut instincts are like next level. You are so smart. And I just let him have it.
Awesome.
But the business world calls it that. The business world be like, entrepreneurs, right? You talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, you serve in the entrepreneur space. Like a lot of us have that gut instinct, that knowing, right? You
Yeah.
ever had that, Jen, where you're like, no, I just know
Yeah.
that this is the path I'm supposed to be on. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is the decision I'm supposed to make.
100%. 100%. That happens all the time. It actually happened with leaving my career as an actuary and becoming a clinical social worker. So it was like so obvious to me, but it also happened recently with these challenges I started doing to help people's nervous system regulate their nervous system.
Yeah,
So it's like whether it's big life decisions or smaller things that come to
that's
me like,
right.
oh, this is what's needed in the world right now.
Yeah.
It comes. What I find is you just have to listen for it. You have to notice when it comes.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's true too when you talk to artists, authors, writers, they will say it's like I got this download or I just like wrote what I was supposed to write or sang what I was supposed to sing or the riff on the guitar just popped out and it was like, where did that come from? I don't know, but I'm grateful for it. And I truly believe that's the process of co-creation. That's what it's like when you're
Yeah.
connected to your higher self and you're really living your life in an aligned way, if you will.
That super checks out. I just sent a book to my editor last week, and I feel like it was seriously, Kara, divinely guided. Like
I love
I
it.
would wake up kind of in this stage between first waking up and then laying in bed because I wasn't quite ready to get up. Not it was not my alarm hadn't gone off, and I would get these just like these downloads, this information. It was like, oh, I got to write this down. So I started keeping a pad by my
I
bed and
love this tip,
just
by the way.
writing everything because it was like so clear what was coming up. And some of the parts of the book are things that I know from my training and certifications and academics and all that. But a lot of it was this stuff that came from something bigger than me.
That's right. Or yeah, like a part of you and a part of something bigger than you or a part of what I call the unseen. And
Yeah.
and that happens. Like I haven't done anything with it yet, but that happened to me a couple months ago. I woke up literally in the middle of the night and they were downloading an entire book to me. And I was like,
Wow.
Lord, what do I do with that? So I got out my phone, opened a Google Doc, and just wrote down chapter titles. What is it about? What is it supposed to be? And it's like teaching people how to be a vibrational match for the life that they want by using energy principles, but in a really relatable way. And I was like, oh, that's a great way to explain that. I love that. Thank
That's
you.
super cool.
Yeah. So,
Let us know when it goes on sale.
right. Well, I have to write it, so that, so it was the outline of the book, but it was so beautiful. And I always trust when things like that come. And even if you're somebody that's like, I don't know if I believe in mediums, I don't know what I think about all that. Just trust that you're going to get drops of wisdom. And when you get them, you can either live in fear and doubt and did I misunderstand it? Or maybe I shouldn't do that. Or you can take a leap of faith and you can say, "Oh my god, that is so smart. I'm going to take aligned action. I'm going to just do one thing that moves me closer to that vision that I saw or that dream that was planted in my heart or that desire to do or serve in certain ways." When you have that, that happens. Like, just take one step towards it and see how you feel. Don't think about the big magnitude of it. And I think, especially as an undiagnosed ADHD or ADHD or myself, like we tend to like think like, oh my God, that project's so huge. Oh, that's so big. Where do I even start? Oh my God. And then we keep delaying things. But then once we get into the action of it, we're like, boom, 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 let's go.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, what if you just took one small step toward the desire or dream in your heart? One tiny little thing. And
Mm.
let's say you've always wanted to write a book. What if you say, you know what, today I'm going to spend 5 minutes journaling and writing for the sake of writing, for what creatively wants to come out of me, because I love expressing myself in words, even if no one reads it. And that's signaling to the universe and to your higher self that I'm opening myself to that dream that was in my heart. And
Yeah.
so I just think that's true about anything. Like, oh, I'm always wanted to open an ice cream shop. Well, what if you just started dreaming up flavors? That's it. Today I'm going to come up with a super cool ice cream flavor. And it's signaling to the universe, I'm starting to take steps towards the things that are planted in my heart, if that makes sense.
That's cool. That's really cool. I like that. Things that are planted in your heart. Okay, now I have a question though,
Yeah.
because when it comes to me in meditation or when it
Yes.
comes to me in that transition state from waking, probably alpha
From
wave
a sleep to
state.
awake. Yeah.
Yeah, where you're in your alpha waves, then it's pretty clear that it's coming from something bigger or from my highest self. When it's less clear is when I'm awake. Is this anxiety pushing me or fear pushing me? Or is this coming from my intuition or higher self? Do you have
Yeah.
anything that you share with people to help them ascertain? Especially when they're first getting started.
Yes.
It's like, "Hey, I heard this and I need to go do this." But it's like, "Okay, is it fear-based? Is it?"
Yeah.
Yeah, what
It's
do
in a couple of things. Like, one, you teach this, but regulate your nervous system, right?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
huge first step. It's like, do some breathing patterns. I personally like box breathing, but you do
yeah.
whatever one works best for you. You regulate your nervous system, you get yourself calmed down. And I will tell you, intuition and inner wisdom is always going to come in the form of a super kind and gentle nudge in the right direction. When it is fear and when it is low vibrational energy around you that is not for your highest and best good, it will come out as anxiousness, nervousness. What if it all falls apart? What if I can't do it? And that is your ego standing in the way. And you can
Okay.
tell based solely on the intention of the guidance. So
Ah,
that's what I like to tell people. Like, your guides are never going to be like, what if you are a shit show and you lose your business and it all falls apart? Like, that's not how your guides are going to help you.
that's fair. That's fair.
Like, that is us getting in the way of our dreams. That is us choosing to attach ourselves to low vibrational emotions and feelings that don't serve us well.
Yeah, And what I like to say is it's parts of us that are trying to protect us
Yes,
because they learned long ago to protect us. But what they don't know is that the time has changed and our life has changed. So that level of protection is no longer helping the way they intend it to. And
that's right.
instead, it's actually harming us.
That's right. Our ego is there to literally protect life and death.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's there
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And so when it's not doing that, like if a lion isn't chasing you in the woods or you're not like being chased by some, person that's trying to attack you or whatever, somebody's not breaking into your house, then it's okay. Like then you can say, I'm good. I don't need you right now. Thank you. You helped
Yeah.
me like survive my early childhood. You got me through these like big, like fight or flight type moments, but I'm good. I'm really good now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because that can be something that it can be challenging for people to know what the message is. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, how do I know?" Like, "Well, I feel like I was told to do this," but then their eyes look like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah. Yeah, and so when that happens, when somebody's like, "I feel like I'm supposed to do ABC or 1, 2, 3." Now that doesn't mean we don't get in our own way. We don't mess it up in our 3D world. But in general, it's powerful to say, "Okay, what's the most aligned action I can take
I
towards
like
that?"
that. I
And then
like
you
that.
literally just take one small step towards that vision or dream or whatever that might be that's in your heart. And the more that you can shift into a vibrational state of peace, love, harmony, self acceptance, worthiness, the more that you can be an energetic match for the vision that you have in your heart. And that's truly how it works. So when you think about, like, you talk about self love and how we can have compassion for ourselves, sometimes situations are super challenging and we're going through really hard stuff, losing jobs, loved ones crossing over to the other side, health issues, heartache. I mean, so many big, big things that can cause lots of challenges for us. And the thing that I would encourage your listeners to do is to say, what is the most loving thing I can do for myself right now?
Oh,
And sometimes what we need more than anything is we need to mother ourselves. We need to be a mother for ourselves. Like what a mama bear would do for you, we sometimes have to learn how to do for ourselves because
yeah.
we tend to like care and nurture, especially as women in particular, everyone else around us. And we don't necessarily know how to nurture ourselves. And
Right.
sometimes, to be honest, Jen, sometimes we use nurturing other people as a distraction for caring well for ourselves.
100%. Absolutely true. It's actually so my book that's coming out.
Oh, I love alignment.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I've shared it has some good titles so far. I don't
The
know that
working title, as long as an
yeah,
editor
my
or publisher
title,
doesn't change it.
yeah, it for sure starts out The Self-Loved Woman Way, but then the subtitle right now is How to Stop Playing Small with ADHD. But it's really targeted at how as women, we believe that we shouldn't put ourselves first. And it also focuses on, like, regulating our nervous system and finding love for ourselves,
Yeah.
working with the parts of us that are convinced we have to put ourselves last, as well as working with some of those invisible obstacles that we may not
Yeah.
see that we have, but things like fear and doubt and even like hidden insecurity that doesn't show up like obviously because a lot of my people have done some inner work, but shows up
Yes.
when they go to put themselves out there. And then it's like,
Right. Then you're like,
I
oh, oh, oh
can't.
no.
Yeah.
I'm
And
stuck
so
in quicksand. What do I do?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something we all thought would be a much bigger issue when we were growing up, right? Is we thought we'd see quicksand everywhere, but anyway.
Yes.
Up in the '70s or '80s, if you didn't, then that's fine.
Exactly.
But anyway. But yeah, it's so true, and so I love that you're talking about this because it is something that it's really important to nurture
Yeah.
ourselves so that we first of all, because we're deserving of our own love and attention, which if you're listening, I know there may be a part of you that doesn't believe that. And
Yeah.
I get that part. That part's been well trained.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
But also to recognize that like you can't serve from an empty cup.
No, you can't. And I will say this too. When my spiritual abilities awaken within me, I got automatic downloads from my grandpa and my guides and angels, and it was an automatic writing, which is an exercise where basically
Yeah.
you're not controlling the pen's moving without you doing it. And
Yeah.
so
So
it
cool.
was old school cursive and it was all those things. But it was like the most deep and profound and intense therapy session of my life.
Wow.
And what they really asked me to do in that awakening was to confront every part of me that still carried shame and guilt and anxiousness about the choices I made in my life.
Oh,
And my guess is you and everyone else on this that's listening to this episode is carrying shame for something.
yeah.
Something that you might think about yourself or an action you took in your younger years or whatever it might be. And believe it or not, that is stored in our subconscious. It's stored in our body on a cellular level. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know.
Right.
And part of that is just saying, you know what? I I forgive myself and I am going to move through this one step at a time. And when people told me for, let's just call it shame. Let's say you feel really shameful about something that happened in your life or a choice that you made in your life. If you want to go from like shame to full self-love acceptance, you're like, whoa, I don't know who you think you are, but that's a long ways from point A to point B.
Totally.
And you're nuts, lady, if you think I can just shed that and like, I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going
Right.
to
Right.
exhale
Right.
it right out of my existence. And so what I encourage people to do is to approach it like in phases and say, okay, about this topic, can I get to a place of neutrality? Can I get to a place of neutral where I say, I'm not going to feel bad about it, but I'm not going to fully accept it either. I'm just going to try to understand it for what it is.
Love that.
I was a different person then, or that it wasn't my fault. I've got to just get to a place where I can see the facts of it for what it is.
Yeah.
And then you can start shifting it up to be like, okay, how do I get to acceptance? How do I get to peace? How do I get to full love and understanding of that particular situation or person or whatever it might be? But I think that's a powerful exercise to the power of neutrality.
I love that exercise. That's awesome. And it's really in line with our frequent conversations on the podcast about so I'm trained in internal family systems, level 2 trained, and so it's really in line with nurturing our parts and understanding
Yes,
how all parts are welcome. They have good intentions. They're trying to help. What we did at the time made sense for the time.
that's exactly right.
And so
You
I
did the best you
love
could with what you had at the time, or it's there
exactly.
to serve you, right? You're like, I'm now willing to look at that situation. Let's say it's something that
Right.
happened to you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Something terrible that happened to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you can say, you know what, I'm willing to look at that now. So I'll give a personal example. My father had polio, and
Oh,
so it's been something he's dealt with his entire life. He was born healthy, had a vaccination shot that had too much of the vaccine, and then at age 1, he got polio.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
and so I, of course, as I awaken spiritually, am getting these downloads from his guides. I'm doing readings for my dad, all these cool things, and he said to me not that long ago, I am so grateful for it because I know for a fact I would not be the artist that I am. I would not have the abilities that I have. I would have suppressed all of those things if I was physically able to do all of these other things. If I was able to run or play football or do this or do that, I never would have opened myself up in this way and I would not be who I am. And the things that make me extra amazing, are literal. Like, he's an incredible artist. He's a hairstylist. He teaches art therapies. I mean, he's just a cool dude, and he's like, none of those things would be in me had I been a healthy person. I know that. I've got all of my family as examples around me to show me that. And so
Wow.
that's like what the power of accepting things that happen to us
Yeah.
and allowing them to teach us what they're meant to teach us.
Yeah. That's so wow, what a powerful story. It's just such a beautiful story. And I want to say, I know a lot of the people that listen have complex trauma histories. And I know you would never imply that like we're going to look at the good side of our trauma. That's not what this is. This is
Good side. I'm not saying it
no,
that way. I'm
right.
saying what
Yeah.
what can I learn about
Yes.
myself from the
Exactly.
experience?
Exactly.
And there is a lesson in that. There is something that will come forward for you
Yeah.
by just saying, I cannot change these statistics, this fact, this thing, but I can get curious about it and try to understand how I can grow from it, learn from it, what it's meant to teach me. Yeah. And of course, I want to say this too, since, I'm not a therapist, that's not the space that I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
in, but it's never anybody's fault, either.
Yeah. It's not your fault that someone
Yeah.
did something bad to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Or something bad happened to you, right? A car accident or this or
Yeah.
that or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you. I know that. But I just want to say for those of you listening, like this is really about like, okay, this thing happened and how do I navigate now? And I might as well learn from this thing that happened because here it is. It's
Yeah, exactly.
here.
Unfortunately, we don't rewind the tape,
That's
you
right.
know? And so it's there, it's in your life story, it's in
Yeah.
your blueprint
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. It's in the fabric of who you are.
Yeah. It's true. It's so
And
true. I like
so
that.
like what lessons can you weave into that to transform that into
Yeah.
into something more meaningful for you?
I like that, Kara. I like that. So I don't know if I don't even know what time it is, but I wonder, you talk some about these listening languages.
Yeah, let's get into it a little bit.
I wonder if you could share a little bit about what listening languages are.
Yeah, I like to call them intuitive listening languages.
Okay.
And part of the reason I say that is because when people are opening themselves up intuitively, it gets confusing. You're like, what one am I? Like, what is this? I don't
Uh-huh.
even know what that means. And, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I don't think I might be two of them, but I'm not the other two. And what are they again? I don't remember. And I can't tell you, even people that have taken my courses, they'll still say, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that one is. And I said, you don't have to. It really doesn't matter. But it's just understanding like in what ways are you most open to receiving intuition? And there are four main ways that people get intuition. Not that all of them exist, but four main ways. So you're like, I see my signs. I see things, right? So that would
Right.
be, oh my gosh, every time I go for a walk, I see a squirrel and I look up what a squirrel means. Or I see 11:11 on the clock all the time. Or I wake up at 4:44 every day and I try to go back to bed and I'm like, what is this? Or like things like that. So you might see repeating numbers, you might see coins, you might see feathers, you might see little like tchotchkes of things and they remind you of something. So it's getting things into your visual representation. I keep this little dime here because I did a reading for somebody not that long ago. And this dime was on the floor in front of my chair. So I picked it up and I was like, that's so funny. This has got to be for this person. Like I'm starting a reading in like 20 minutes, like 100% this has to do with something for them. And then, of course, their dad is in spirit and was channeling and coming through. And I was like, something with the dimes. And by the way, I had one today. And she like, her jaw dropped. And she's like, I'm fine. The last 2 weeks, I have found dimes everywhere on my steps, in my car, here, here, here. And I was like, okay, well, your dad gave me another one for you.
That
So
is so cool.
yeah. So you might get signs in terms of things that you can see with your actual eyes or your mind's eye. So let's say you're a meditator, Jen.
Yeah.
When you meditate, do you see images like a movie screen when you close your eyes? Or do you see colors? What do you see when you meditate? Do you see anything?
Well, it depends. So I will see images. And in fact, when I read books, I read them like a play in my head and I can
You
see
visually see it.
I visually
The
see it.
characters, the scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one part of my meditation, I move light up and down the channel of my spine. And so I actually
Lovely.
see the light,
Yeah.
actually
Beautiful.
see the light. So as you were talking, I'm aware that this is my
One of your strong ones. Listening
strong
languages.
one
Yeah.
because I always, especially so numbers on the clock has always been a thing. But when my mom died, I kept getting these numbers that were like 747, 737, 727, 838. And it was like almost the only times I would look at the clock and I'm like, my goodness. And then I met with a evidential medium
Yeah.
and she's like, your mom is handing me a clock. She tells me that she's communicating to you through the clock. Do you know that's her? I'm like, I thought it
Yeah.
was.
I
I
almost said 717 as my example, which is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
crazy, and then I didn't because 'cause I'm like, "That don't make sense to other people."
It makes sense to me. I would've been like, "My mom is here."
Well, she is. There you
She's
go.
always with me, so but at any rate, yeah, I have a
Yeah.
very strong visual sense
Yes. And
is what comes up for my intuition
love
most
it.
of the time. Yeah.
And honestly, this is the one the world talks about the most.
Oh,
And so
really?
if this one isn't your thing,
Mhm.
you often will be like, "I don't have intuition." Like, other people, like,
Oh.
see numbers, see stuff, they see animals, they see butterflies, they see this, they see cardinals, they see blue jays, like,
Oh,
I
cardinals.
don't see any of those. Yeah, exactly, I actually said that for you. But they are saying, like, "I don't see anything," or, "When I meditate, I don't see anything," or, when people talk about, "See a purple light, I don't see anything, so what's wrong with me?" And you're like, "Nothing's wrong with you. You're beautifully made just as you are, and that is just not your core listening language, and that's okay."
I
So,
like how you say that, not your core listening language.
yeah, so it's just not the way intuition is likely gonna show up for you, or at first. It's something you may need to develop over time.
Oh, but you could develop it.
Yeah, 100%. You can develop all of them. It's just whether or not they'll be, like, natural for you,
Got it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
So, clear seeing, you might be somebody that's clear feeling. So, that would mean when somebody says something really extra special, you're like, "Oh my god, I just got goosebumps. That's so good."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like, when somebody said something that resonates with your heart, or something really
yeah.
emotional or special, I feel tingles all over my body, almost like, glitter. Like, that's how angels show up, or things
Mhm.
in my body. It's like glittery. I feel it right now, like glittery sensations all over my body. But you might feel things, and you also might be a big feeler in terms of, you might call yourself an empath, you know? Like, you're like, "Oh, I don't know. I just feel what other people feel. I'm such an empath. I have to make sure I don't take on their emotions." Things like that. So you might get confirmation in a feeling, right? I also get, when I'm channeling, I'll get hot flashes, like my whole body will sweat, and I'll get hot when certain loved ones are showing up, and I'm like, "Holy Lord, there's such a strong energy. They're making me so hot." That
Um,
happened for me, but that might be for you. You might be like, I feel things, or I have such empathy for people." And so your knowledge of the right direction to go in your life, or wanting some intuitive guidance on what the right step is, you might get a feeling like, you even might walk into a room where you're like, "Oh gosh, I feel like a little gentle breeze or something. I felt something."
yeah,
Something that I can't explain.
yeah.
Okay, so that's the second one.
And I wanna say something about that. That one I also experienced too. That's probably my second, very close second. One of the things I wanna say about that, with ADHD, we tend to be highly sensitive beings, and a lot of us have a deep sense of empathy. So I suspect a lot of us can
Would have
connect with
this
this
one.
one.
It's my strongest one,
Yeah,
honestly.
I feel it a lot too. If I have a in fact, when you said you were feeling like glitter, I was like, it took me a moment, I breathed it in, and then I felt it, and I was
Oh,
like,
I
"Oh,
love
yeah."
that.
I was like, "Thanks for your glitter, that's awesome." Like, I feel a little bit now. But over time with therapy clients in front of me, I could feel what they were feeling in their body, I could feel it in mine. And,
Yeah.
like, especially when I do IFS and it's just us, so I'm really
Yep.
in, it's I can feel what they're feeling, and so
Yeah.
some
Yep.
of that I always assumed was this listening language, but also I believe a big piece of this is common for neurodivergent folks,
Yeah.
because both, especially people
I
who
never
are
heard that before, but that makes perfect sense to me, Jen.
yeah. Yeah, it has to do with how our brain is wired. In fact, it also makes us more susceptible to PTSD because our brains are stickier. So they can hold on to stuff they feel deeply, but it also gives us these awesome gifts. So so yeah.
I love that, and that's fascinating to me if you think about, like, what I've never thought about groups of people being more attuned to certain intuitive languages. So I'm like, my brain is, like, going like crazy right now thinking about that. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might be a feeler. For me, this shows up when I'm doing reading for people, where I've actually had to over the years learn how to tune this down because it's too intense. But they will make me feel how they died. And like, if they, let's say they couldn't breathe, they'll take away oxygen in my throat and make it really hard to do. Or they'll put really heavy pressure on my chest if they had a heart attack. Or if they had head trauma, they'll bring a pain to the side of my head. And it's just ways for me to relate to the person who I'm reading for. Like, hey, they're showing me this so that you can trust that it's them,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get a validation.
yeah.
But I'm always like, you don't need to give me a headache for me to know you had brain trauma. We're good. Just show me brain and show me trauma. Like,
You're
so I've
like
had to learn how to do it
Soden.
another way. Yeah, exactly.
What could that be like for someone who oh, wait, that's the same feeling one that we were talking
Yeah,
about
that's right.
there.
Clear
Yeah,
feeling. That's exactly right.
yeah, yeah.
Then there's clear hearing.
Okay,
People that can hear things, it might be ringing in your ear,
okay.
where you're thinking about your mom, and then all of a sudden your ears ring a little bit.
Oh,
Or you might really be moved by music. So you're like, when I'm having a crap day, I have to put on my pick me up playlist because nothing else works.
yeah.
Literally nothing else works. No thoughts, no journaling, no this, no that. I just need to listen to Pink, or I just need to listen to Whitney Houston, or like whatever your jam is. I don't know. A Swiftie, whatever your vibe is. You're like, I just need my Indigo Girls. That's what I need. Um,
Little good girl.
Poster.
That's right. Love will come to you.
That's right. Closer to fine. I'll get
That's
there.
right. There you go.
We could do this for a long time.
We could do this for a long, long time. We're both Gen Xers, so Gen X women know Indigo Girls. So
And I have to say, Melissa Etheridge, side note, this is okay. Did I do this?
yeah, of course.
Indigo
It's an
Girls.
ADHD podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me permission to side note. And Melissa Etheridge and Indigo Girls are coming to Nebraska, and it's going to be my daughter. She's 10, my daughter's very first concert.
That's so
Taylor Swift. I said, I don't know what. I know you think money grows on trees. And in fact, she actually told me that it does. Like, she has no limiting beliefs about this, which is fantastic.
good for her.
But I don't have it quite in my checkbook to fly to Paris and take you to Taylor Swift. So you're going to go to Indigo Girls, and you're going to what? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
you might be clear hearing or this is another example. I had a client where I was doing a reading for her, and her mom had passed away. And she said, the craziest thing I'm like, they're showing me car and radio, and something with a car and the radio and your mom. And she was like, oh my God, that is the craziest thing. So I was driving in the car. My mom had passed away. It's been about a year. And my mom's phone called me through my Apple CarPlay. And she was like, oh, what do I? Obviously, my mom is not here. Like, who the hell did somebody? So her immediate thought, right? Limiting beliefs, 3D world. They gave my mom's number to somebody, and now somebody's calling me from that number just randomly, right? And it's programmed in as mom in my phone. No, she answers it, and her mom is Hispanic. She's Mexican, and it was 10 minutes of mariachi music, and it just played mariachi music. I know, it's such a beautiful story. And just kept playing mariachi music her whole drive home.
Oh,
And it was her mom's birthday.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I know. It's just the sweetest story. And it's like, and so for her, listening to something or hearing something was a powerful listening language for her. And that's true for like, when you're thinking of your dad, and then all of a sudden like Butterfly Kisses comes on the radio, or things like that. So if you're really strong into clear hearing and hearing your signs, those are ways that it'll show up for you.
Would it also be possible, like, let's say you are an entrepreneur and you are trying to figure out what product you want to share coming up here. And would it also be like maybe you're hearing the words of that product in your head?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
You might.
So it could be that too.
Yeah, that could be clear hearing, or it could be clear knowing, where you're getting like it could be either one, or could be both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
both are possible. Very rarely do I have like an actual voice, like not my mind's eye made up voice, my imagination that's planting a voice, but an actual voice. But I have had it happen. I remember I was in college. We were driving on the interstate. I was a camp counselor, and I literally heard, move over, move over. And I wasn't driving. And so I told Nikki, the girl who was driving, I'm like, move over lane, move over lane, move over lanes. I don't know why, move over lane. And we moved over lanes, and there was a giant car crash right in the lane we were in. And so it's like things like that will happen. Like what happened to my husband, he thinks it's coincidence, but it happened where he heard move the car, and they were pulled over to the side of the road because it was a terrible ice storm. And so they moved the car. He said, I don't know, just move the car up, move the car. and then a giant piece of ice fell like the size of a car. Like it would have collapsed the car in an over passageway, and it would have collapsed the car if it hadn't moved the car.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
And I guarantee you have listeners on your podcast who are gonna like call in or email you and be like, you know what?
Wow.
Yeah. So
If you do comment, we would love
yeah,
for
comment on the
comments.
pod. We love to hear all your signs. We love it. And then the last or fourth most common one is clear knowing. And
Okay.
entrepreneurs really have this one.
I
It's
do.
like, and it's like, I'm not actually going to tell you what I'm going to do because you're going to think I'm nuts. And I don't need your negativity. I don't need your toxicity. I don't need your naysaying about how this isn't going to work because I know with every fabric of my being that this is the decision I'm supposed to make.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs have this one a lot. And it
Yeah.
is just the sense of knowing beyond comprehension and beyond logic
Yeah.
that that's directionally what you're supposed to do or who you're supposed to marry or who you're supposed to divorce, both sides of that coin, or whatever it is. It's just like I just know. I just know. I know
Yeah.
it. I know I'm supposed to call my book this, or I know I'm supposed to do this, or I know I'm supposed to pivot niches, or I know. I know it. I don't know
Yeah.
how I know it, but I do, and I'm gonna trust it. That's
Yeah.
the magic. I'm gonna trust it.
That is the well, and what I've noticed is I've had periods of time where perhaps I allow too many external voices into my world,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it's harder for me to shut out the external noise to hear that knowing.
Yes, it's true.
So when I spend more time in silence, when I let myself lay in bed for 45 minutes transitioning for I'm working on not feeling guilty about it. I don't know if you
No,
can tell.
why should you feel guilty about that? Like,
Well,
it's the moving from sleep to awake, I do the same thing. I don't have 45 minutes 'cause I've got a 10-year-old
well,
needs
that
to go to
just
school and pack lunches and stuff, but I'm the same, like, this from my sleeping to awakeness, that in between time is when I get so much information. So
yeah.
I actually breathe, I do the Ho'oponopono prayer,
Mm.
I allow some wisdom to drop in, and I just if you have 45 minutes like Jen, by the way, do not be embarrassed by it or ashamed of it. Be like, "Oh my god, I'm so grateful that I get to slither out of bed in this magical way, like,
Yeah.
yay me." But if you only
Kind of
45
have
minutes,
it.
but let's say you have 5 minutes, you know? Then take that 5 minutes, and that sacred time to just let stuff drop in without picking up your phone, without scrolling Instagram, without doing the things, and just let the wisdom come in because it will. It
Yeah.
will, especially if you set an intention to
Yeah.
say, "Show me what I need to know."
Yeah. It's true. The other thing I did that probably helped it too, last May, I unplugged my TV and I never let myself plug it back in because then I'd have to go like I was having too much screen time.
Yeah, I
And so
hear
I
you.
unplugged my TV, but then I knew I didn't wanna plug it back in because once I figured out again how easy it was to reset up Comcast and everything, then I would end up just bypassing my friction that I created for myself to the
Yeah.
activity I didn't wanna do. But then in the meantime, I lost the remote. So I wanted to watch the
Lovely.
Vikings game last weekend.
Thank God you didn't. It's terrible.
I know. I watched it on my phone every once in a while. I checked the score. I'm like, at least it wasn't as bad as last night's game, but still. But for those of you know, the Vikings are not in the playoffs. They
They lost.
they
It's
they
by the
choked.
time this airs, whoever the Super Bowl champion is will probably be
Right.
dubbed, and it's not the Vikings.
It's not
So
the
don't bet
Vikings.
on them in Vegas.
That's right. Don't yeah, obviously. But yeah, yeah. So anyway, but I literally couldn't find it. But what I found is that cut out a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everyone has to
Interesting.
unplug their TV, like whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, that was one step I did. And I also have been really selective about who I work with. Like
Mm.
I mean like who I allow to work with me is
Yeah,
what I
totally. That's exactly right. Like who gets to be in your energetic space.
that's right. And
Yeah.
because some of it, one of the things I've been starting to talk about more is it's really helpful to have people ask you really good questions. It's not helpful to have people give you just straight advice.
Yeah. Because I think it's true for everyone,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're on a journey to figure
Yeah.
your life out,
Yeah.
right? And you're on a journey to find the most soul aligned path for yourself.
Yes.
We all are. And
Yes.
when somebody's like barking, like, you shouldn't do that and you should do that, it somehow
Yeah.
feels like no unnecessary noise on your path.
Yeah.
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 And I always say intuitive guidance doesn't come that way either. It is
Yeah.
always a gentle encouragement for you to take a step. And
Yeah.
whenever I'm channeling messages, they all, especially when it's from your guides, your guardian angels, a higher source, not necessarily loved ones in spirit, but like your power team, they almost always say things like, you may want to,
Oh, cool.
you may want to. And
Yeah.
it's like a gentle nudge in a direction that would be for your highest good.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I
And
love
that's
that.
how we should treat ourselves, truly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyone else in your field. If they
Yeah.
have a gentle nudge in the right direction, they're a big shove out of the right direction. You then get out of my life. I don't need I
Ain't
don't
that
need
the ain't that the truth?
That's right. You do not get a seat at my table. You sit in the audience, but you do not get a boardroom seat.
Love it. You do not get a boardroom seat. I love that. Well, what you're telling me, it's so, I mean, of course they are, but our guides and angels and our intuition is very trauma informed because with trauma
Oh,
informed care, everything is about choice. And if you'd like to, you might consider you. So it's very much,
oh, I love that.
yeah,
You're
well,
so wise.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I'm certified in trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga, and all of everything uses invitational language and non-coercion as a upfront theme and choice making. And so
Yeah.
as you're talking about this, I'm like, oh wow, that's really aligned with trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga.
You're like, oh no, our guardian angels were like, master therapists.
That's right.
Stuff.
We know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so helpful. I love hearing about the different ways that our intuition can come to us. I love just even having a conversation about how we know the difference between noise and or fear or
Yeah.
ego, and
Yeah.
it's just really helpful. And so if people are wanting to find you, I believe you have a podcast, is that
Yeah,
right?
I do. Yeah, I have the energetic podcast where I talk about energy and frequency. I interview a lot of mediums. So if you're like, Kara, I liked your stories about all the things you were channeling. More of that. I interview mediums from all over the world, and that's really fun.
Cool.
But I also have it's called an Talk to Your Guides activation guide. And what this activation guide is to take you from spiritually curious to spiritually connected. So it really truly is to take you from I am kind of open to all this, but I don't know what it means. And I like a framework and I like some tools and I like to have a little bit of a plan. I don't like to willy-nilly and just be like, what? So it really takes you through that. There's a couple meditations that are in there, and it's really just helping you learn how to make your own unique connection and to just trust that you're being guided and just open yourself up, especially as an entrepreneur and especially if you're neurodivergent where you're like, you know what? Could I maybe use that? Like if I'm more in tune to other languages, you've got me thinking about this so deeply now. How do I use that as an advantage in the business world? How do I use that as a tool that helps me have it in a superpower way that maybe isn't as open for other people?
Yeah, I
And I,
love that.
I think
And
that's cool.
I think it's really cool, and I believe you told me it's super robust. This is no one-page freebie, y'all. This is like an ebook. So,
Yeah, it is. It's about 20 pages. It's got really good information in it, journal
yeah.
prompts, stuff. But it's not going to take you like 10 days either.
No, no, no.
Like spend an hour or two with the content and just see what
Yeah.
comes up for you.
That
Yeah.
sounds right up
So
our
I'll
alley.
drop the link for that in your show notes so that you can
Great.
grab it. And it's also my company is called Karmic Leader, KARMIC, karmicleader.com. And it's always available on the resources tab of my website too.
Okay.
So other free tools are there too, but this is my favorite one. So
Awesome.
so if people are interested in just saying, I want to dip my toe, but I don't necessarily want to go talk to a medium. But I'm
Right.
free to guide and like explore it a little, then this is
Yeah.
yeah.
That is a nice step because you're right. When I've believed in psychics and mediums for much of my adult life,
Yeah.
and I had met with a couple, but then when my mom died, I started meeting regularly with an evidential medium,
Yeah.
and it's so I just met with her. I always meet with her right around my birthday,
Oh, lovely.
and it's fun because
Oh,
my mom gives me like, hands over a birthday cake as if to say,
oh,
"Hey, it's someone's
yeah,
birthday," so it's kinda
yeah.
cute, but this year, my grandma showed up and because she just died, which seems sad, but she was 13 days before her 105th birthday, so,
Oh, so
like,
she lived a
she
long
lived an
life.
amazing life. So, anyway, but yeah, but it's I forget that not everyone is as
Yeah,
comfortable, except when I share that with people, they're like, "Oh," and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, I forget not everyone is."
That same way. Yeah, I'll tell this really fast. I
Yeah.
had an evidential medium on my podcast that's out. She's in the Boston area,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she works with the police, and she'll like her guides like show her grid maps of things, and so she like solves. She works with the FBI.
What in
And she just grids of things drop in and numbers and sequences and different things, the latitude lines, all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah.
That is so cool.
She
I
like
love it.
find Babe Ruth's missing piano within a lake, and she's like, "Here's where it is," like crazy fun stuff like that.
Oh, and she found it.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, and she was cool. Yeah. So it's really
oh
fun.
my gosh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
So
So cool.
so much for having me on the pod and for opening up your listeners to this topic. I would
Yeah.
say don't make it such a big scary thing and just say, you know what, even if it's just I have wisdom within me that I'm gonna trust, then just take that. Be like, you know what, sometimes I just know directionally where I'm going, and instead of doubting it, I'm gonna spend some more time trusting it. And that's a beautiful place to start.
Yeah, I love that, Kara. That's really helpful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, yeah. And so if you're listening, make sure you check out those show notes so you can find where you can find Kara, as well as if you haven't left a review, I would love it if you left a review. There is kind of a janky video in the show notes to show you how to do that in case you don't know how. And if you're not following already, I would love it if you would follow the Self Love ADHD Woman Way podcast. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. Take care.